Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. Codename, Lees by Larry Loftis, is a narrative non-fiction account of Odette Sansom, a British agent working for the Special Operations Executive in Nazi-occupied France during World War II. Built with the momentum of a spy thriller, the book follows how an ordinary mother is drawn into clandestine service, trained for covert work, and sent into a landscape of betrayal, roundups, and constant surveillance. Loftis frames her story against the real pressures of SOE operations, where radio networks were fragile, couriers were hunted, and a single mistake could unravel an entire circuit. The central arc traces Odette's transformation into a resilient operative and, later, a prisoner fighting to survive interrogation and imprisonment while protecting others. Along the way, the book highlights the personal costs of espionage, the moral complexity of resistance work, and the ways courage can take the form of patience, deception, and endurance rather than firepower. It is both a war biography and a study of human will under extreme constraint. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, from civilian life to covert service, a major theme of the book is the unlikely pathway from domestic responsibilities to high-stakes intelligence work. Odette is introduced as someone shaped by family life and wartime disruption, not by a pre-existing desire for danger. The narrative emphasizes how total war created openings and demands for civilians, especially women, to step into roles that were once unimaginable. Loftis explores the recruitment logic of the SOE, which prioritized language skills, cultural familiarity, and the ability to blend in over conventional military credentials. That selection process sets up the book's tension. The qualities that make a person appear ordinary are precisely what make them valuable in clandestine operations. The transition into service also raises questions about consent and risk, including what recruits understood about capture, torture, and the thin support structure behind enemy lines. By focusing on the psychological leap required to accept such a mission, the book positions espionage as more than action scenes. It becomes a lived choice, one that draws on patriotism, personal resolve, and a willingness to separate private identity from operational identity. The result is an origin story centered on transformation under pressure rather than innate heroism. Secondly, training, tradecraft, and the reality of SOE operations. Another key topic is the practical mechanics of spy work and how fragile it could be in occupied territory. The book highlights that clandestine success relied on mundane disciplines, secure communications, believable cover stories, careful movement patterns, and a constant awareness of informants and checkpoints. Loftis presents SOE work as a system of interlocking roles, where couriers, organizers, and radio operators depended on one another, and where an arrest could cascade into a network collapse. This creates a grounded view of tradecraft, showing that bravery often meant following procedure when emotions begged for improvisation. The narrative also underscores limitations, poor intelligence, unpredictable German countermeasures, and the ever-present possibility that London's plans did not match conditions on the ground. Within that environment, Odette's value comes through in her ability to maintain composure, read social cues, and sustain operational discipline despite exhaustion and fear. The book's emphasis on detail makes the espionage feel earned rather than glamorous. It also illuminates why the SOE became both admired and controversial, operating in a space where secrecy and necessity sometimes collided with bureaucracy, politics, and the imperfect information of wartime decision-making. Thirdly, occupied France and the human landscape of resistance. Loftis places Odette's mission within the broader social environment of occupied France, where resistance was not a single movement but a patchwork of individuals, motives, and risks. The book explores how ordinary people became connectors, shelter providers, message carriers, or silent supporters, often without any formal structure. This environment demanded constant judgment, whom to trust, which safe house to use, when to travel, and how to avoid patterns that would attract attention. The narrative illustrates how German security forces and collaborating authorities exploited fear, scarcity, and coercion to fracture communities, making betrayal an ever-present threat. Against that backdrop, the book treats courage as relational, built on shared danger and mutual dependence rather than solo heroics. It also shows the cost to civilians, including the consequences when raids or interrogations rippled outward to families and neighbors. By portraying resistance as a human network rather than a romantic ideal, Loftis helps readers understand why agents like Odette needed empathy and social intelligence as much as physical stamina. The occupied setting becomes a character in its own right, shaping every decision through scarcity, surveillance, and the constant tension between visibility and invisibility. Fourthly, capture, interrogation, and survival as a form of resistance. A central and harrowing section of the book deals with capture and the struggle to survive interrogation and imprisonment without compromising others. Loftis emphasizes that the battlefield for an agent does not end when the mission fails. It shifts into a contest of endurance, deception, and psychological control. The book depicts how prisoners faced systematic pressure designed to extract names, locations, and procedures, and how small decisions could protect or endanger an entire network. Odette's story illustrates survival strategies such as maintaining a consistent cover narrative, choosing what can be safely conceded, and leveraging captors' assumptions. The narrative also shows the loneliness of imprisonment, where uncertainty about the outside world and the fate of comrades can be as crushing as physical hardship. In this framing, resistance becomes internal, a disciplined refusal to cooperate even when the body is failing. Loftis uses these events to highlight moral complexity too, since agents had to weigh personal survival against collective risk. The emphasis is not on sensationalizing suffering, but on explaining what it took to hold a line when every incentive pushed towards surrender. This topic reinforces the book's broader argument that heroism often looks like prolonged, unseen persistence. Lastly, recognition, legacy, and what heroism means in wartime. The final major topic concerns how wartime actions are recognized and remembered, and why stories like Odette's matter beyond their immediate drama. Loftis explores the idea of decoration and public honor as both a tribute and an imperfect summary. Awards can spotlight bravery, but they cannot fully convey the hidden labor, the moral compromises, or the private losses that accompany clandestine service. The book also touches on the gendered dimensions of recognition, since women in wartime intelligence were often underestimated, exoticized, or written out of official narratives despite their operational importance. By centering Odette, the narrative challenges stereotypes about who becomes a combatant and what combat looks like. It suggests that resilience, emotional control, and the ability to withstand isolation are forms of strength equal to battlefield feats. The legacy discussion also invites reflection on how nations use heroic stories to build meaning after catastrophe, sometimes simplifying complexity for the sake of inspiration. Loftis presents Odette's life as a reminder that history is carried by individuals who rarely begin as legends. Their choices, made under pressure with incomplete information, can shape outcomes while still leaving scars. This topic leaves readers with a more mature definition of heroism rooted in responsibility and endurance. In conclusion, this book is well suited for readers who enjoy true wartime espionage, resistance history, and biography that reads with the pace of a thriller while staying anchored in real stakes. It will also appeal to anyone interested in overlooked contributions, particularly the vital roles women played in intelligence and underground networks. The main benefit for readers is perspective. It shows how courage is constructed from repeated decisions, disciplined habits, and the will to protect others even when outcomes are uncertain. That mindset can translate to everyday life as a model for resilience, composure under pressure, and commitment to values when shortcuts are tempting. Compared with many World War spy books that focus mainly on gadgetry, codes, or grand strategy, Codename, Lee stands out for its human clarity. It connects operational details to emotional consequences and makes survival, loyalty, and moral judgment central rather than incidental. Loftis also delivers a narrative that is accessible to general readers without requiring deep prior knowledge of the SOE. If you are choosing between similar titles, this one is worth buying because it balances historical context with a sharply focused personal story, leaving you informed, moved, and newly aware of how much quiet heroism shaped the war's outcome. If you would like to support Larry Loftis, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.